Hello everyone, I'm Emily Albee. I've been the studio manager at Wesleyan Potters for the last 3 years, and today I am going to be virtually showing you how I make my pinch pot animals. For the safety of everyone in the studio, my 2 camera ladies, Mary Ruth and Natalie, are now more than 6 feet away from me, so I'm going to take my mask off so that way you can hear and understand me better. But we are adhering to the social distance rules. So, pinch pot animals, they're great, they're silly, they're fun, and it's a easy thing and fun thing to do when you're at home in your studio and you're just looking to pass the time. So we're gonna just jump right into it. So this is a rat. That's what we'll be making today, and you don't need very many tools. You just need some clay. I have one hook tool that I like to use, and then I also like to have a paintbrush available for smoothing things out. And today I'm working with Laguna 10 B Mix. It's a cone 10 clay, but any clay will work great for this. So the first thing that we're going to do is pull the tail. So this ball of clay is going to become the head, this is going to be the body, and this is going to be the tail. There's a lot of clay here right now, but it's, you'll see. So if you've ever made a handle, pulling the tail is essentially the same thing. So you're going to hold the clay in your non-dominant hand, and then with some water underneath, you're going to get your dominant hand wet and grab onto the clay and pull down. Every time you pull, the clay is compressing and it's lengthening, and this is important. You could just roll out a tail, but it wouldn't have the same strength as it does when it's compressed in this way. So I always like to pull the tail instead. So we're just going to let this get long. We're going to clip off this end here that was kind of the wrong shape. And that is starting to look pretty good. And then what I'm going to do is just hook this over the edge of the table and leave it there to stiffen up while we work on the rest of the form. Okay, so we're going to start with the body. It's a pinch pot. I'm sure that most of you have made a pinch pot at least once, but if you haven't, it's pretty simple. You just take a ball of clay, stick your thumb inside, and then start pinching. So what I'm starting with is the base of the rat. We're starting with his butt and his feet. So I get my thumb all the way in there, and then I just start shaping the clay. I'm going to form the feet very rough at first, and then I'm going to start to bring the body and the belly up. I'm going to focus on the spine, elongating it. My thumb is inside, compressing the clay, stretching it out. And at this point, it really just looks like a blob of clay. It's might not see what's happening here, but it's in there. So you just have to keep going and don't doubt yourself. So right now, that's the spine. We've got the feet starting out here, and this will eventually become the arms and the torso, right? And the reason that we're pinching it is because we need to make sure that this form is hollow, so that way it can dry evenly, so all moisture can vacate the premises, and then it won't explode in the kiln. But so we've got the feet there. I'm gonna push out the thighs, and I like to make these rats kind of exaggerated in form, so I give them really big thighs. I'm going to go over to the other side and do the same thing. Use my finger to just push that out. Great. And now we're gonna start bringing the belly up. And while I'm moving the clay around, I'm also just checking the thickness inside. We're always looking for that 1/4 inch thickness as best we can around the whole surface. Okay. And that's just so it dries evenly. All right, so now we're going to start to add the arms, the upper arms. I hope that was as awkward as it felt a moment ago when I did that. But we're going to do the exact same things that we did for the legs down here. We're just mapping out where those arms are going to be. Giving it a little hand over to this side. Pushing in. So now I like to start to close in the neck. And that is where the head is going to attach. And it's okay if this is kind of, like you can see this is kind of thin here and thick there. That's okay because we're going to have some extra clay from the head that will fill in some of that area. Okay. So very rough, but there we have our body so far. Okay, and we're going to just put this down and let it firm up for a little bit. And now we'll move on to the head. So, when working with the head, we're going to start with the nose. We're just going to start to pinch this out. And push the clay back. The heads are solid. They're small enough in the end that they don't need to be hollow. So we just shape the clay. I like to have a long, thin sort of handle here. We'll cut some of that off before we attach it, but that just makes it easy to hold on to it and work with it. And just, I haven't used any tools yet. I'm just using my hands, my nails, the tools God gave me. All right. Smooth that out. That's pretty good. Get rid of some of this extra clay down here. And we're going to attach this together. It's always a good idea to score. Honestly, sometimes I don't at this step, but this clay is a little bit drier than I normally work with, so we'll just go ahead and score a little bit. And just add a little bit of water. Slip is nice too. Stick that head right in there and start to blend this clay together. All right, now our rat has a head. Still doesn't really look like much at this moment, and that's okay. It's just kind of a lump of clay, but that's fine. Because at this point, I'll use my one tool and we can, or I guess two if you count the paintbrush, but we can start to go through and refine some of these areas. So I just like to carve out all of the places where I want to have more shadow or more depth. And this exercise is meant to be fun. You're not meant to judge yourself too harshly or set any expectations. You don't have to make a rat. You can make a penguin. Penguins are great. Dolphin. Lion. Really anything. Okay. So those arms are a little bit more defined. So let's do the legs now. And really, you're just drawing on this. This is creating sort of, this is where the shadows are going to be. So you're creating your line work. And now get down underneath and we'll give each of them a thumb. Rats and mice, if you look at their skeletons, their hands are very similar to humans. It's really quite fun. Okay. So that's getting closer, right? We can give it some fingers if we want. Just poking little lines. Do the same thing with the toes. It's fun to set a challenge for yourself and to have like a timer and to not worry about details and just, make the form and move on. It's also fun to take your time and really try to perfect whatever form you're working with. So I'm going to go over the face in the same way that I went over the arms and legs. We're going to cut out some eye sockets. Grabbing some of this discarded clay that I pulled off, I'm going to make some eyeballs. Just get it wet a little bit. That's still a little big. It's better. And that one's a little small. Okay, so we've got some eyeballs in there. We'll give it some, I always like to put like eyebrows just to build up definition. I know that rats don't really have eyebrows, but they do have that bone structure. And it just gives a little more shadow underneath. Makes it more dramatic. Okay. Now we'll give it some ears. And I don't really fuss about the ears. I just kind of squish some clay into a general shape. I will do a little scoring. I like the ears to be really rough because sometimes, I mean, you know, a street rat, who knows what sort of trouble they've gotten into. They don't have perfect ears. And if you're having a hard time, you can always use a tool to smooth out those hard to reach areas. Okay, so now we're almost done. This is the part where I like to just take a paintbrush and go around to all those lines that we carved in and just sort of smooth them out. Of course, I grabbed way too floppy of a paintbrush for this, but we'll just make it work anyways. But this is nice. You can sort of smooth out those fingers, get rid of these rough edges. You don't have to do this part. You can leave the rough edges in if you want. This is just one additional thing that you can do. I think it's nice on the fingers and toes to do this because the clay can sort of pill up and your tool drags across the surface. And there's some cracks on the clay over here. If it's important to you that your rat be smooth, you can always grab a sponge and get rid of those. If that's important to you. Okay, so here we are. Almost done. We just need to attach the tail. So taking the tail that we pulled earlier, we'll get rid of the extra clay. And we're just going to take out a nice big hole from the back. Do some scoring. I'm not going to bother scoring this because it's still pretty wet from when we pulled it earlier. And that looks like it's got a nice relationship with the body. We'll just close that up. We will give it a hole so that air can escape. I like to just hide that right in the leg or in the foot on the bottom. I just stick it right in there. You can do 2 if you're nervous. 1 is usually enough, but then we have some symmetry, and it doesn't really look like it's there. You can put it down and sort of shape it, give it the final shape, the final gesture. Decide if its head is cocked, we'll do a little, cock the head to the side a little bit with the tail coming around this way. And there you have it. Rat 1. Rat 2. Thank you so much for joining me.